Now calling Deputy Clerk Haley.
Thanks, Corla. And it's obviously difficult to concentrate on anything today other than the Garda matters, but I do think that the issues at discussion here are of critical importance, and we do need to put the spotlight on the EU and how it conducts itself, but critically as well on how we as a country within, if you like, a League of Nations, and particularly a neutral country, conducts itself as well. And I think we have to seriously examine the EU's policy towards the Ukraine. And it hasn't been motivated by humanitarian concerns or democratic interests for the well-being of the people of the Ukraine. The EU has conducted itself in this situation based on an economic and political agenda, in essence directly competing with Russia's own economically motivated agenda. And those who are going to suffer for that are the people in the middle, the people of Ukraine itself. Now, like the other deputies, I find it nauseating to listen to the Western media cheering on the coup against the corrupt Yanukovych. Clearly, he was corrupt, and I've no sympathy for his demise, but this cheering didn't take place because he was corrupt and that this was a blow against corruption. In fact, it was because it destabilised the region and allowed for the advancement of neoliberal agenda in the Ukraine, the same agenda that is riding Russia throughout the EU. And I thought it was somewhat ironic that Enda Kenny argued yesterday that really all what the people in Ukraine want is to have the right to join the EU and be as happy as the people of Poland and have such great living standards as them. Well, obviously he doesn't know too many Polish people, because I can tell you the conditions that exist in Poland aren't anything to be lauded about or applauded, and the idea that the Ukraine is going to be joining the EU is also laughable and is not going to offer a way out in that regard. I think the very fact that the new regime has installed new oligarchs shows that it's not democratic and is putting the interests of a tiny elite really ahead of the interests of the population there. I think it is appropriate to condemn the hypocrisy of the EU and the Americans in terms of threatening sanctions. And we have to argue for consistency here and say, let's not forget that these countries have a history of similar undemocratic and bloody actions in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Serbia, Kosovo, and so on. So the idea that somehow the EU has morphed into the great defender of human rights and protecting people's borders is quite frankly an absolute insult, and we know obviously that when US interests are at stake, it is no problem in embarking on military interventions and invading sovereign territory. So we do have to be consistent. Now, I do think you see the doublespeak as well, because the EU's economic interests in the Ukraine have to be protected as well, and some of the powers are pulling back somewhat because of their own concerns. We don't really have time here today, but I suppose I would be appealing to the government. We're in a unique position as a neutral country to do something different. I don't think anybody in this House is a cheerleader for the rotten Putin regime, but there are some of us who would argue more for consistency and to put the interests of the people of Ukraine more at the heart of this discussion, rather than the interests of the big companies, the multinationals, the interests of NATO and those who want to enrich themselves at the expense of the many.
Thank you, Deputy. And now, Deputy